In-depth journalism in the Memphis community, the Daily Memphian is of Memphis, not just in Memphis, and seeks to tell the stories of this city. TheDailyMemphian.com. Truth in place.
Production funding for Behind the Headlines is made possible in part by the WKNO Production Fund, the WKNO Endowment Fund, and by viewers like you. Thank you.
A look at growth and development in Millington tonight on Behind the Headlines. I'm Eric Barnes with the Daily Memphian. Thanks for joining us. I am joined tonight by Chris Thomas. He's Executive Director for the Millington Chamber of Commerce. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me. Good to be here.
Along with Frankie Dakin, City Manager for the City of Millington. Thanks for being here.
Good to be back. Yeah, thanks for having me.
And Bill Dries, reporter with the Daily Memphian. It sort of realized in the pages of the Daily Memphian, such as they are pages, the web pages of the Daily Memphian, that there were all kinds of little interesting things and then bigger interesting things happening up in Millington. And so we've been working to get you all on the show. Given everything with the federal intervention and so on, this show is going to sit for a week. So if anything happens, we'll talk about the Wanda Halbert County Clerk issue. But just know that the show is waiting a week here. But what I'll start with you, Frankie, and then we'll go to Chris. What's the thing that people don't understand about Millington?
Oh, yeah. So that's a really great question. I think people are picking up on the message that we are an engine of growth for Shelby County and West Tennessee, and that's something we're really proud of. I think one misconception that I hear out in the community is that the Navy base left in the late 90s, and we're still fighting that. And so that Navy base has between 6,500 and 7,500 employees any given day. It's one of the largest employers in our area and one of the largest employers in the state of Tennessee. What's different about that employer is they're constantly bringing new folks in, and folks are retiring from that base. So every year, a couple hundred people retire from that base with some of the best leadership development in the world. 20 years of service in the United States military. Those are folks that could stay right here in Shelby County in Millington. Our growth primarily is because they are choosing to stay in our community. And that is really a huge driver of our growth, not only because of the neighborhoods that are being filled up, but because of the workforce aspect there. You know, when you talk to the economic development folks, workforce is number one. And if you can hire somebody 38, 42 after 20 years of service in the United States military, you're getting an excellent employee that's going to really devote their time to your cause.
Well, one alum is Doug McGowan, right?
That's right.
Head of MLGW, former CAO,
right.
COO for the city, a friend of the show. Chris, from your point of view, you've worked in government in all kinds of places. We were joking before the show. You've been school board. You were in Lakeland for a minute. You were lots of different roles, county commission. What do people not understand about Millington that they should?
Well, for years, Millington unfortunately had a bad reputation as far as all the municipalities. But what has happened that in the last probably 10 years, especially the last 5 years, people don't understand that it is a very safe city. It's very family oriented, and that we, the growth that we are having, the businesses that we are having, we are built for it as far as going forward with families and the education system, and Frankie can talk more about that. But really, people just don't realize what a great community it is because of the bad reputation in the past. And now with the new leadership, and leadership before we got here has started planning. And so, like I said, we are built for it as far as the preparation for growth down the future. And I'm just excited, and so many people in the community are contacting me about the excitement and asking, what's going on in Millington?
Yeah. Let me bring in Bill.
One of the other factors, too, is that Millington is probably more than a little different demographically and otherwise from the other 5 suburban towns and cities. Talk a little bit about that and the town's background, because you also have a mix of bedroom community and a mix of small town business or smaller town business and retail.
Sure. So we have over a 100-year history with the United States military. So less than a decade after first flight, we were training pilots for World War I. And so Millington, because of that history and legacy with the military, our proximity to the wonderful city of Memphis, and then the convergence of rural West Tennessee, really looks a lot like America. And that diversity is our strength. And so what you've seen really leaders across the board that look different, that look like the community that they represent. And that's been a really strong part of our growth and our good leadership over the time period that, Chris is, discussing.
Mm-hmm. Chris, I know you know this as an elected official, but often retail or business or commercial development and residential development, that's not always an easy mix, is it?
Well, no, and one thing, just the city is doing a great job about handling controlled growth. I think that's something Frankie and I have talked about, and he can talk to more, though, is people do talk about not wanting to grow too fast, and that's something I dealt with in Lakeland, being a smaller community, and it started to grow, but now Millington is growing so much. But no, it's not, but we are growing, and we are getting good feedback from our residents of the businesses that are coming into there, such as the Target, Academy Sports, and so many other things. But no, it's not an easy thing, but if you explain, communication to your residents is key. And that's why we're both big into social media and getting the word out about what's going on in our community. And people are actually, the majority of the people are excited about that. And so I think that, the future is bright for Millington, and that's why everything's happening now. People are so excited about it with all the things we got going on.
Is it a little bit easier to do that mix, to talk about that mix, when you have a Highway 51 that runs through your community? Because I would think people would expect it's a U.S. highway. Mm-hmm. There's going to be commercial development along there.
Yeah, because I think the number of cars that come through daily is like 31,000. Yes, I mean, and I meet people all the time that are from up north of Millington and those other counties, and then they actually come up from Memphis, but coming up through that highway, you would expect that. And one thing that's happening in Millington right now is the growth is up in the north part of 51, and something that I'm doing with the chamber is I'm starting a South Millington campaign to where I want to remind people that all those businesses on Navy Road and South US 51 South in that area that were there during the hard times, that they are still there. We've got a lot of locally owned businesses that are there, and I want to help rejuvenate that. And you mentioned the naval base, and I'll go back to that real quick. He's got a background with the naval base, but I built a relationship with them to where we get a chance to go speak to their orientation classes and talk about what's going on in the city, and that the chamber's there for them to come and go to our website and find out what businesses are there. Because so many people that are moving to Millington, they only look for national chains. And so we wanted to know that we've got a lot of locally owned businesses there, small businesses that are just ready for the people to come. And it's, like I said, there's just a lot of exciting growth going on.
And the Navy Road corridor, if I can call it that, that relied heavily on the naval base when it was an air station. And we should point out, it's now the Bureau of Personnel. That's right. For the U.S. Navy. So a different mission there, but the same flow of people through there, right?
That's right. So we want to make it our goal to be the number one place in the country for veterans to retire. The Bureau of Personnel that you mentioned is essentially the HR function of the United States Navy. So in addition to the folks that we have coming in, really two profiles. One is they're on their second to last tour, and the other is they're on their last tour. And then there's another group that comes in quite often that is from all around the world. And so we have an opportunity to put our very best foot forward as a place where veterans would like to retire. And so we think we're doing a really good job of that. Now we expect we'll probably have veterans from San Diego, Pensacola, and so forth coming to look here at Millington, Tennessee, because of our low tax environment. The other thing I'll mention to you, Bill, is that we have the lowest tax rate among cities in Shelby County that actually maintain a police department. And so Chris hit on public safety earlier. We can't stress that enough, that our growth and what the success we're seeing in our community, it starts and ends with public safety. And so by having a local police department that we can layer on top of the efforts of Shelby County Sheriff's Office and all of the other partners that we utilize, we've been able to see crime drop, of course, and we're going to make sure that we have a safe retail environment for folks to come and shop and, and do business in Millington. The other thing, we can get really laser focused on issues that matter to our residents. This past year, we started a traffic enforcement division, and tickets are up. We're writing almost twice as many tickets, which I might hear about that from a constituent or two from time. But that doesn't matter to me. In fact, I haven't even taken a look at the revenue from that. What matters is our crashes are down 50%. And so during a period of tremendous growth, because of a really, approach that was narrowly tailored to our community, we saw crashes go down and traffic get better.
Well, it might. I think the change also probably has changed your housing development, your home building, because when it was training fighter pilots, these were younger military families who were here, who were kind of renting a very small house, because they knew they were going in about 2 years someplace else. These are folks who are, as you said, near the end of their tour. That's
right. And Bill, you really hit the nail on the head. So that really, the base change sent shockwaves through our economy that lasted for well over a decade, really. And how do we respond to that? You're right, the housing types, the businesses, were all focused on serving 40 to 50,000 sailors coming through there every year. And so that is a shock to go to 6,500 to 7,500 employees. At the same time, that means we had the infrastructure to accommodate a population that size. And what you've seen over the last 10 years, we haven't just been waiting on things to come our way. We've been systematically updating that infrastructure. And now today, we have the utility infrastructure, and soon at the completion of our school's master plan, over the next 3 years, we'll have the school classroom capacity to more than double in population without any significant new investments. And I don't think there's a city in the state of Tennessee that can make that claim.
With 15 minutes here or so left in the show, I want to circle back to a bunch of things you just talked about. And again, as we record this, it's a week. We've held the show for a week. You mentioned law enforcement. Hard not to kind of touch on the Memphis Safe Task Force. That includes all kinds of elements, including Tennessee Highway Patrol, including TBI. Are you all seeing any kind of impact at this point from any of those surge of resources?
Yeah. So we've made ourselves available to leadership, to our local leadership, Sheriff Bonner, and members of this task force to say, how can we help? And so one thing we've done recently is we've made jail space available at our jail. And we have about 18 units, I believe, at our jail. And what it allowed Sheriff Bonner to do is he's going to be able to move a population of that jail that is taking up currently a 65-bed unit from Jail East into an 18 unit. And we offered that space for the high price of $100 a year. And so what we're trying to do is support that effort and support our law enforcement partners in that and all of our locally elected leaders. In terms of effect, we had lots of conversations with neighboring jurisdictions and so forth outside of Washington, D.C. and the rest. And we haven't seen any crime bleed over or anything like that. I think that was some concern. But we are in conversation with partners that have dealt with that.
And any of those law enforcement members, be it state or federal, doing actions or interventions or looking for people in Millington, any of that kind of stuff that you're aware of?
No. And, but that doesn't mean that there won't be an action of the Memphis Safe Task Force in our community. If there's a bad guy on the street and we want these federal agencies to get that bad guy off the street, right. What we see as our role is making sure that as Shelby County residents, we have the infrastructure to support. And everybody would agree, 201 Poplar was on the brink of a human rights disaster before this. Yeah. Now I think it's fair to say we are in a human rights disaster.
And you know of what you speak. Talk about the last time you were on the show. Absolutely. And your role, I believe, prior to this was with county government, and you worked, among other things, in that sort of space, correct?
Absolutely.
Talk about what you did.
Yeah. And so I really focused a lot on our mental health reform work. And so I think last time I was on this program, we were talking about a whole host of things that our community is doing to divert people with severe mental health issues away from the justice system. And so these are people with nonviolent misdemeanors that fill up our jail, that should not be in a jail environment. And so I, as a Shelby County resident, am very nervous about what that looks like as we continue, if this operation is successful, and we want them to be successful in getting bad guys off the street, what that will look like for nonviolent misdemeanors in that environment.
You mentioned, and with apologies to Chris, because we'll come back to Chris here in a second. You mentioned $100 rent, which brings up a feud, a fight, an argument. I'm not sure what.
Yes.
Disagreement with the county clerk, Wanda Halbert. There is, and let me see if I understand this. And I've read all our stories, and I'm not sure I totally understand. That there is an office of the county clerk in Millington that does the work of, tags, I assume licenses, marriage licenses, the stuff, it's one of the satellite offices. Millington said, hey, we haven't been paid. We're owed around $40,000. There was an agreement that county commission agreed to that the clerk would have a satellite office here and would pay us money. None of that money has been paid. Wanda Halbert has said we never had a lease.
Yes. I think you hit the nail on the head, Eric. Okay. I think it is a simple issue. I think a lot of issues people and folks in the media, and we appreciate it, try to cover both sides of an issue. However, I think your watchers and your listeners and your readers would agree that when you're in a space and rent has been requested and everybody agrees that rent should be paid, then you should pay rent to be in that space. And so while Clerk Halbert has tried to dangle shiny objects in front of people, the commission unanimously passed a lease, and she has ignored that lease.
And it's a signed lease?
So yes, we signed it back in 2023, I believe. So prior to this issue, prior to the commission taking an extreme action and approving a lease, for her because she refused to negotiate, the city of Millington, before I was there, tried to get a lease for a long time. Yeah. And one shiny object she constantly dangles out there is that the city of Millington provided that space for free for many years. That is true. I think your viewers can agree that things changed in the early 2020s in terms of operations of that clerk's office. The operation of that clerk's office has put additional stress and strain on our building where it is located, and all we've asked is a very reasonable rent, a rent that Clerk Halbert's office would not be able to get.
A couple $1,000s a month?
Yeah, it's $1,600 a month. I believe there's a premium now because they are over their lease, and so we're now on a month-to-month basis.
Is this going to litigation? Is that where we're headed?
Hopefully not. Hopefully not. And I know this is a week later and anything's possible, but I doubt we're going to get the check in the mail.
Okay.
But Commissioner Wright's trying to work on a legislative solution.
Let me get Chris back in here. Thank you. Yeah. Let me get Chris back in here. And we'll be writing about this in Daily Memphian and getting responses from Clerk Halbert. So just to give everybody a fair hearing here. But let's get back to development. You talked about controlled growth. You talked about, without naming names or pointing fingers at any community, what kind of growth is bad? What that would you want to avoid?
Well, definitely won't name a community. Because
no. This happens everywhere. There's you drive around the country, you get to a community that I would, people think, whoa, that didn't go right.
If you grow so fast that you don't have the infrastructure there or the police force there, so that's a community that we would not want to have, because then you can't take care of the roads, you can't take care of the crime issue, because yes, you have a lot more people coming to that area. So those are two of the big things, but then also just you get to where you have so many, you can outgrow your competition, and that's something that residents have talked about. They said, well, if we get all these restaurants up here, what's going to happen to these others? And I'm like, well, I'm for competition, but it's a matter, and we've got a great planning department with the city that is looking at every aspect of growth. And so I think that basically we just don't want to go to where our roads can't handle it, our sewer can't handle it. And I know we talked about we've got the infrastructure, but that would be a bad situation for a city to grow that fast.
Now this will sound like really wonky stuff, but it is Friday at 7 o'clock. So this is, and you're home watching this. But sewers, it is striking to me every time it comes up in development, and some of the legacy issues of county growth and annexation, the fight between some of the suburbs and the city about sewers. It's a huge, huge issue. What is Millington's sewer situation? Where do you guys have your own sewer system? Is it a partnership or a contract with the city? What is it?
We've got our own water and sewer departments, and with lots of capacity to grow. And so that's where he's talking about. We already have the utility capacity for growth.
Yeah.
And our real focus is how do we leverage that growth to solve the challenges of residents today. And I believe you can do that with smart, controlled growth.
Okay. Your electricity and gas comes from?
MLGW.
It is MLGW.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Let me bring Bill back in.
And yet more wonkiness.
Yeah, I love the wonky. Let's do it. And I appreciate the viewers that are watching this at 7 o'clock on a Friday. Yeah.
Let's talk about TIF districts, tax increment financing. I believe Millington had the first one of those.
Yes, sir.
In Shelby County. How instrumental has that been in the growth you've been able to see?
And define a TIF relative to other tax incentives.
Yeah. Essentially, a TIF is using the private investment dollars to put in public infrastructure. Essentially, that is what happens. And so, yes, we were the first, and we're very proud of that. A lot of the development you see on the north side of our town is due to TIFs. And so there's a lot of different ways to do TIFs. Our TIFs have been pretty much on vacant land within area that has existing
utilities. A really
utilities.
tight district.
That's correct. Mm-hmm. That's correct. And so the one TIF I would point you in the direction of is Millington Farms, right now. And so when I talk about solving problems of the residents of the day, this TIF built a road that connects Veterans Parkway to Highway 51, which reduces traffic along a thoroughfare where we have our school and all the rest. And so that is a good thing. By growing, we're actually reducing traffic. And I believe that TIF, it's about a $100 million project, and others have wrote about it, Memphis Business Journal and others. I believe our infrastructure from that will be at least $15 million, of public infrastructure that's paid by private dollars through that TIF.
So, Chris, when you're out there talking to prospects, do they say, "What's the TIF? What's the pilot?" I mean, do you?
No, I haven't heard that. Most of our development or trying to go out and grow our economic development is supposed to be run through our industrial development board. However, I still am always looking for businesses and trying to talk to people about coming to Millington. And that's one thing I want to say right now while I've got a minute here before we end up is if you're a business looking to grow and you want to grow into a stable, safe community, Millington is built for that. We are in a great position to help your business grow. I've been talking to people about that. They're looking at other locations. And so I don't get asked about the TIF and pilot. I know about them because of being on the county commission. And like Frankie's talking about the big one up in Millington. But certainly any business that wants to have families, we are a younger population. But a lot of people think Millington is the oldest city in the county, and we're not. And that's one thing that I've been noticing as I've been up there more. Obviously, I've been in the job since February, is that we're getting more and more younger people in the families and the schools. That's why we're having to build schools. And so it's like I said, it's an exciting time, but people are just wondering what is happening. Why is everybody looking at Millington right now as a place to start their business or move their family, and we're ready for it.
With a couple minutes left, you both mentioned schools, and we mentioned you were on county commission, and which school board were you?
I was on Memphis City School in the early 90s.
Early 90s, okay. And so people kind of forget, none of us at the table do, but that there was Memphis City Schools, and there was one suburban district, including Bartlett, Arlington, Germantown, Collierville, Millington. I'm sure I forgot somebody, I apologize. It consolidated, there was a forced consolidation with the city schools, and then a breakup that really wasn't backed. At the time, it kind of felt like it was going back to the status quo. The city would have its own school system, the suburbs would have its own. But actually, there were these separate school districts. 10 or more years later, how do each of you look at, and I can't remember when you were an alderman relative to all this.
I ran for election the same time they were voting on municipal schools.
Well, I'll start with you.
Yeah.
Has it gone the way you wanted or expected just for Millington?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that what it has allowed, and what I would encourage all folks to do, is the closer you can get decision making to the people, the better the system is going to be. And so that system was way too large. And there's arguments that could be made right now that MSCS is way too large. And that is one reason why that bureaucracy doesn't function as well as we would like to see it. In Millington, we shrunk that. And our decision making is a lot closer to the people. That means we can address needs of our residents that are unique, that are not like Collierville needs, Germantown needs, or City of Memphis needs. A good example of this bill, and one issue that hasn't been covered, is we opened an early learning academy this year. So this, I believe, is the first freestanding public pre-K in the state of Tennessee. We support working families. We support military families. Having a public pre-K and really diving into that means a lot to our community. And I don't believe we could have landed the first early learning academy, the first public pre-K in the state of Tennessee, if we were under a system that does not look at our needs.
Yeah. Thoughts?
Well, real quick, I'll just say I was on the county commission when all of this happened and all the process of starting new system and all that, and they had the joint system, 2 superintendents, and we didn't know what was going to happen with this. It was crazy. Bill was there for that too, but no, as a commissioner that voted to help create municipal schools, I now look at each municipality and how the population growth, the property tax increase, and the property tax values. People were telling me, "Oh my God, my property taxes are going to be bad," and all of this. I'm like, but their appraisals have grown, and it's unfortunate with the leadership, with going on in Shelby County Schools is what it's called now, that we can't get a better handle on the education of that school system. But the municipalities, from what I've seen, especially Millington, doing a great job out there.
And you all compete with the other suburbs. I think that gets lost. Because that didn't happen as much when it was one suburban school district.
I think competition's a strong word. I think they share resources. I mean, there might be some healthy competition, but one thing that's special about Shelby County is each of our municipalities are different. And that's important, and that's unique to counties across the state of Tennessee. So Lakeland is way different from Millington. I don't think we're directly competing with Lakeland.
Right, yeah.
Exactly. We want to support each other.
You were an alderman in Millington. You worked for a county government. You've been there since the consolidation, deconsolidation of the school system, and so on. There are like tangible changes, really tangible changes in investments in Millington. And we'll talk tonight at 7 on the full show about this. But that some people think the base closed completely. In fact, the base transformed.
That's right.
And you all have embraced that. And that has actually been, although it was a big hit when the base changed and closed, the 6,500 plus people that are up there now have a big influence on where Millington is going.
Absolutely. So we have a proud legacy of supporting the United States military for over 100 years. And what we are doing now is making sure that we're building the very best community for those military personnel. We want to be the best in the United States for veterans to retire. And by doing that, investing in the sort of things that military veterans want, safety, quality green spaces, quality schools, we are creating a community that's welcoming to all.
Let me bring Chris Thomas. People may know your name. You were a county commissioner. You were on the old Memphis City School Board when it was, it kind of looked like it does now, but it was a different entity, and other positions in government and private business. For you now, less than a year, what makes it work, economic development, the kind of investments that are happening, what makes it work in Millington?
Well, big thing, thanks for having me on here, is that it's a safer community. The city, under Frankie's leadership and the mayor, they have invested in public safety. They have put money into making sure we have a fully staffed police force, and we also have the infrastructure to grow. So any business that is out there that I've been talking to about, what about Millington, or can you handle this? And Millington is really built for it as far as the growth goes, and the younger population that's coming in there. The schools are amazing. They've gotten so much better than they were years ago. And I just think people are excited about being somewhere where they feel safer, and also where they can have their family and go have fun things to do. There's so many activities to do that people don't even know about. And Frankie's done a great job putting out a newsletter, and we're trying to work together with the city, and doing a great job working with them on trying to promote good things about Millington. And there's so much out there people need to know about.
Bill Dries from the Daily Memphian.
We talk about this in more detail on the TV version of this. But Frankie, what's the latest in the dispute with Wanda Halbert, the county clerk? The city of Millington has said, you owe us money for a lease on your office space. She says there is no lease. Is that going to get worked out?
Well, we've tried to communicate with the clerk for many, many months about this issue. And Bill, I did check the mail this morning, and no rent check. So no developments there. We are reserving the option to take this to the court. However, I don't think it's responsible or best practice for governments to communicate in a courtroom. And so we're really grateful to Commissioner Mick Wright and the commission, who's already taken aggressive action to hold Clerk Halbert accountable in the past. And we're exploring a possible legislative solution to the fact that the Clerk Halbert seems to be unwilling to pay her bills.
Let me note that we recorded this show a week ago from when it aired. There could have been developments then, but let me, again, go back to Bill here.
As both of you know, I occasionally cover politics. One of you is a Democrat, Frankie. One of you is a Republican, Chris. Does this kind of speak to the political diversity of Millington as one of several things that really make Millington different from the other 5 suburban towns and cities?
Well, I mean, Frankie can address more because he's been there forever, his young life. But I'll just tell you from my perspective, when I came into the board, I said, y'all know my background, I'm a conservative, but I'm coming into the position, I'm working with everybody. And I think we need more of that. I tried to do that when I was on the county commission, and all my positions as an elected official is work across party lines.
That's dangerous, by the way, isn't it?
Yeah, well, it is, but because I won't even name some of the people right now because we don't have time, that I'm friends with and been seen in public with, and people have asked me, why are you out with them? And I'm like, because we've got to be civil, and unfortunately we've lost a lot of that. But that's why Frankie and I have tried to work together. And I think Millington, and you can tell me because you know, but is more majority Republican,
That's right.
Voter-wise, but still, the thing is we've got to work on what's best for the city.
Yeah, and so partisanship is disastrous in local government. Partisanship is bad. We are nonpartisan in Millington. We're able to focus on the issues, that face our community. And so I am really proud of that. It's one reason why I'm so glad to work in my hometown. I am concerned about the movement towards making more local offices partisan. So the movement towards school board offices being partisan, I do think is going to be disastrous for our community.
All right. We will leave it there. Thank you very much for being here. Again, we taped this a week ago, so there may have been some developments with Wanda Howard that we didn't get to, but watch Daily Memphian for that. Thank you, Bill. If you missed any of the show today, you can get the full episode online at WKNO.org, YouTube, or the Daily Memphian. Recent shows have included folks from Just City and Stand for Children talking about the law enforcement. We had Mayor Paul Young. We had some county commissioners, and we'll have more shows on the Memphis Safe Task Force Federal Intervention coming up soon. Thanks very much, and we'll see you next week.